This video is all about mordanting fibers for natural dyeing. If you are asking yourself questions like, what is a mordant? How do I mordant? What can I use as a mordant? Do I always have to mordant my fibers before the natural dyeing can take place? You are in the right place, because we will cover all of these questions. Mordanting doesn't have to be overwhelming, I promise. Let's get started. What is a mordant? A mordant or dye fixative is a substance that is used to set dye on fibers. And why do we mordant? Inevitably, all naturally dyed colors will fade over time, either through the exposure to the sunlight or through the washing process, and we apply the mordant to help strengthen the bond between the fiber and the dye in order to make the colors last as long as possible. The mordant forms a coordination complex with the dye, which will then adhere to the fiber. This will increase the wash and light fastness of the colorway. Is mordanting absolutely necessary? Technically, you can dye a skein of yarn or piece of fabric without mordanting. So you can absolutely, totally skip the mordanting step and still create something beautiful. You just have to be aware that the color might not last as long, so it will fade quicker. And in addition, the uptake of the dye could also be a lot less if you do not use a mordant. There are also several natural dyes that will produce great and long-lasting colors without a mordant. In a previous video, I showed you how to dye a skein of yarn using natural dyes. In this video, I used onion skins, and onion skins are a great example for a dye stuff that can be used without applying a mordant first. I also have a free guide for natural dyeing beginners that covers all of the steps of the natural dyeing process. I'm going to link it in the description box. Whenever a dye plant is rich in tannins, you can often get by without mordanting. Tannins are compounds that naturally occur in some plants and that act as kind of natural mordants. I have written a detailed blog post about tannins, which I'm also going to link in the description box for you. The word tannins actually comes from the old German word tanna, which means oak. So, as you might have already guessed, oak is one of the examples of a tannin-rich plant. There are several parts of the oak tree that can be used for natural dyeing. The leaves, as well as the bark, and also the oak galls. The oak galls are actually produced by the gall wasp. Other examples for tannin-rich plants that can be used without an additional mordant are avocado pits and skins, which create this beautiful shade of dusty pink, as well as coffee and black tea. Back to mordanting. We have two different groups of mordants, the plant-based mordants and the metal salt mordants. For the plant-based mordants, we have already talked about tannins, and another example are soybeans. When it comes to metal salt mordants, we have several options. First, there is alum. You can't see it now, but it is a white solid. We have aluminium acetate. I've got it in a liquid form as a aluminium acetate tartrate. And one more, this is a newer mordant. It is called aluminium triformate. And one more metal salt that I want to mention is iron sulfate. Let's have a look at the different metal salt mordants in a bit more detail. Let's start with alum, because it is a very popular mordant. Alum is an inorganic compound. It is non-toxic and used in various different applications, for example as a food additive and also in the cosmetics industry. Alum is rather easy to use, and it is used to mordant protein fibers like wool. Aluminium acetate is used to mordant cellulose fibers like cotton or linen. The mordanting process is somewhat similar to alum. And lastly, we have aluminium triformate. Aluminium triformate, as I mentioned, is a new mordant, and it has several benefits compared to the other types of metal salt mordants. It can be used to mordant either protein or cellulose fibers, so you can use it for both, which is great. And it is also very simple because it does not require the addition of heat. So it is also called, that's why it's also called a cold water mordant. Iron sulfate or ferrous sulfate is sometimes also used as a mordant. However, it can damage the fibers and make them brittle when used over an extended period of time. So that's why I usually do not use iron sulfate as a mordant. It is, however, a wonderful way to modify naturally dyed colorways if you're not completely satisfied with the result. You can add your naturally dyed fibers to an iron bath after the dyeing process has taken place, and in some cases, actually in quite a lot of cases, the iron bath is going to either mute the color and tone it down a bit, or it can also sometimes totally transform the colorway. So, which mordant should you use? This totally depends on two things. First, the kind of fiber you want to use. If you want to dye cellulose fibers like cotton, linen or hemp, you will use a different mordant or a different mordanting method compared to dyeing protein fibers like wool. And the second thing that you have to take into consideration is what kind of dye stuff you want to use. Dye stuff does not react the same with different mordants, and that's something you have to consider as well. In order not to overwhelm you, I would like to end this introduction into the topic of mordantings here. By now you know what a mordant is, why we use mordants, and what type of mordants there are. In the next video, I'm going to show you step by step how to mordant a skein of yarn or a piece of fabric. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this video helpful. Please leave me a comment if you have any questions. Also, please like and subscribe. I have lots more videos on natural dyeing topics coming in the near future. Bye guys!